Hey everyone. Okay, so right from the jump, and after a brief wrap up with between the crew and Elsie, we get a rather ominous revelation through Laguna's inner thoughts that the story he told the crew about the reason he boarded their ship is a sort of a pack of bullshit. He's not just looking for a place of refuge to escape from the eye of the government, but he's on a personal mission. And I think it goes without saying, but whatever this secret mission is, it's likely to put us on a collision course with the Nero Empire, as more or less following that moment, we get introduced to the Ocean Six, who are in essence the six generals of the Nero Empire. And with the reveal of these six new characters, the episode also draws attention to Shura's personal assistant Ijuna, which, yeah, I'm not going to say who she is really, but neither does the episode make it subtle that I think you could say a lot of this arc in regards to Laguna's story is going to revolve around just who Ijuna is as a character from her introduction alone, but also that with the introduction of all these characters and Ijuna, we get one interesting scene, a flashback showing that yes, it was Ziggy who taught Shura how to use Satan gravity as a personal quest from Nero. And two things I really love about this flashback, looking back on it, is that first off is it not only it establishes Nero and Ziggy's relationship right from the jump. It showcases that yes, whatever's going to happen, whatever's going to bring them to come to blows in this arc, Nero and Ziggy were friends. They were close. They were confidants with each other. So it's going to be interesting to see how exactly the dynamic of them coming to blows is going to look like because of this information. But more than that as well, it does also showcase, this flashback I think also does showcase very subtly why I think Shura is a little underappreciated as a villain, which is to say that he's in my opinion, Shura is looking back on all this, Shura is very much a dark mirror reflection of Shiki. In a lot of ways, Shura is who I think Shiki would have become had he not met Rebecca, had he not been pushed to leaving Granville, and more importantly, had he not been raised and taught those important lessons of life by Ziggy. Like, if you think about it, it's because of all this influence, all these experiences that Shiki has had that's made him the person who he is today. But Shura, already you can tell, Shura has not had the experiences that Shura has been kind of isolated from. Been raised in a very isolated environment. He doesn't know the first thing about empathy or anything. He hasn't been raised in the same way Ziggy has. So because of that, he's basically become a callous, uncaring, and just downright psychotic asshole because of it. Now, circling back a bit to the Ocean Six, there's a whole lot more to say there, but I will say, a lot of the fights the Ocean Six have with the crew that are going to happen in Season 3, I think, are fun. They're also kind of underwhelming, aside from two fights which I really want to see get animated. With all that said, though, obviously one of the more emotional scenes to talk about in this episode is we see that thanks to Sister, Clean has finally made a full recovery, and we obviously see Jin having an emotional breakdown at the fact that he finally has his sister back, in a manner of speaking. And definitely a couple things to talk about with this moment. First, the memory erasure. Now, I think when I first read this in the manga, I said something along the lines of it feeling like an easy fix to the problem, and at the time, I think I said it felt like Mashima was downplaying the issues of trauma. But looking back on it now, what Sister did was kind of a kindness to Clean. Her trauma had overtaken her so much that it really would have destroyed her, and had she kept living with even the slightest hint of those memories in any capacity. So her being rid of those memories did truly free her in a sense. So now the Rutherford siblings can finally start moving forward with their lives, as seen with what we see in the training scene, where we see both Jin and Clean actually join the crew and just kind of like being like working alongside them now. Now, with that said, I do admit this is definitely one moment where although I generally liked how it was handled, and just seeing Clean's first genuine smile, I do wish the episode kind of lingered on the whole moment a little bit more, because and just allowed the emotion of the scene to breathe rather than just adapting it then moving on to the next scene. Like, I admit it's the one problem I do have with this episode as it just feels like don't get me wrong, they still made this scene work, but there's an aspect of the pacing where I felt that they could have slowed down. They could have just let it sink in just a little bit longer in order for it to really click, in my opinion. But again, as is, it's still good. It's just, I think it could have been a lot better. And I'm not gonna lie, it is kind of just kind of hearing sister say that apparently that she had erased the memories of both of Mueller's torture of the siblings and of Drac and Joe supposedly saving Clean. It is kind of twisted in a sense when it is kind of a twisted reveal when you think that it's because of Drac and Joe's debt collectors like finding her that is ultimately what saved him. Like it's one of those things that kind of shows that for as much of a piece of shit that Draken was, ultimately a lot of what made him a piece of shit was that he was just a businessman, and that he did, like, him saving Clean was just, it was a transaction, which again is sleazy, but he did save her. That is kind of a thing we gotta remember, I guess. Also, I'm not gonna lie, revisiting that conversation between Weiss and Jin is interesting, given what I know about later events, because while I wouldn't say my opinion on a certain moment later in the series, I saw as Weiss' potential hasn't changed entirely, I think this moment does give a little bit of perspective of why Mashima went the route he did with it. And yeah, aside from that, there's not a whole lot more to talk about with this episode, other than another moment between Holy briefing Justice on the actions of the Nero Empire that they need to take out Shura while they can, but also the revelation that Holy is in the middle of her own mission and that she's got an even bigger fish to fry, kind of hinting at the fact that even though she reprimanded Justice for focusing us so much on Elsie and a personal vendetta, she is kind of in the middle of fulfilling her own personal vendetta, and the big fish she's after could pretty much be considered the equivalent of Moby Dick, the Great White Whale. So yes, so it is kind of interesting how they're both, so she's kind of a hypocrite, but she's not wrong either. And yes, this is something that this is going to get touched on after this all the business with Nero is finished, and I'm not going to lie, looking back on a lot of this arc, but especially Nero's complacency and letting Shura run wild, is kind of interesting now, because knowing what I know about the guiding dice and just how this arc ultimately ends for Shura, I wouldn't be surprised if Nero foresaw Shura's fate to an extent and just let it play out. Like, it just makes me wonder that, yeah, I think he foresaw that everything was probably going to crumble regardless. And yeah, obviously we get the reveal from Zenith that Ziggy's mission on Foresta was to wipe out Zenith to prevent Shiki from getting stronger, but now that he's with the crew, he can teach Shiki all he knows, which, I'm not gonna lie, that whole bit of the episode had me busting a gut laughing, because knowing what I know about the ultimate, knowing what I know, it is kind of an ultimate irony and expression of George Lucas's motto. It's like poetry, it rhymes. That whole, just what George Lucas's motto, that kind of like encapsulates, like putting aside the weird BDSM fan service which followed, that, like, the whole thing of Zenith choosing to train Shiki is a pure Star Wars moment in my opinion, which ultimately leads to the end of the episode where Ziggy backs Zenith and appears before the crew as a phantom program, which yeah, so now we've got that to deal with. But Yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, put me on Twitter, and unless Crunchyroll, be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share it around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.